record on this computer. Recording has started. Okay, so here is a brief glance at the agenda, and I do have it printed in front of me to keep me on track. We're calling this meeting to order. I wasn't sure whether Dr. Thomas was going to be able to join us or not, but I certainly wanted to introduce him if he does get the opportunity to come.
He's on.
Is he on?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, Mickey. And then I had sent the previous minutes attached to the meeting invite for you guys to look at. And those are down here that we had Dr. Bridges addressing us with his vision. I took attendance, and we mainly interacted with him, and you guys asked some pretty pointed questions to him. So I want you to erase that meeting, okay? Because we're moving forward with this next initiative. All right, so I'll keep it as precise and to the point as I can and explain how we're going to move into getting this launched and focus on some goals. And then please, please, I need your feedback. Some of you wrote me after the last meeting and gave me some really, really good ideas about how we should approach breaking this off into bites. And Michelle, if you don't mind me thanking you publicly here for sending that, I agree that eating a small bite of the sausage at a time is much easier, and we'll have better results by doing it that way. So, Dr. Thomas, I'm going to let you go first, and if you are able to stay through the remainder of the call with us, great. But Dr. Thomas has done a wonderful job of setting our vision for the online division. And I really feel like we're off to a good start with this vision, and that Glenay and I are both on board with handling it in the manner that he's supporting. So I'm going to turn the floor to you right now.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yep, good. I will apologize now. I have a couple of fires that are burning this afternoon, so I may have to jump on and off as that happens. So if I black out, I'll hopefully be back before you're done. But if not, I just first want to thank you all for what you're doing. You know, when we started down this road, and I may be repeating some that you've already heard, so I apologize. But when we started down this road, something to always remember is 1/3 of our students were fully online prior to the pandemic. And we really weren't doing more than the minimum, in my opinion, of making sure we were meeting all those needs. A lot of our stuff was a byproduct of what we were trying to do for our on-campus students. And really and truly, that's not how we should operate. Whatever mode we're delivering, whether it's hybrid or fully face-to-face or whatever, or fully online, we really need to make sure we're doing the best we can for our students. And so one thing I told Dr. Earl-Wilcox is that we need to really kind of chunk how we're going to move forward. Rather than trying to figure out the entire pie, let's get into the ingredients first. By knowing what those ingredients are, it allows us to then plan out. I'm going to put this in first, and I'm going to make sure this part of it's working. And then I'll move to the next step and add the next ingredient in. And then before we get to the end, we will have baked the whole pie. And so it's really in that spirit. As she moves forward, that's kind of the way she's going to look at it. There will be a few things you will bring up. So we really need to think about that. Well, that's step 4 or 5, not step 1. And so what is step one? And really looking at how we deliver those courses is really step one. How do they look? How does the student see it? Are they all in the same? I see some of our student affairs. I see Amanda specifically. And one thing I've really stressed is the part of the world that most schools don't do well is that part of it. And I want to make sure, I saw a face, Amanda. So go look at the literature. You're going to find none because there's no best practices on the student affairs side. There's one book that came out at the beginning of the pandemic that was written prior to the pandemic. And that's by NASPA, if you want to go find it. But it's really in its infancy. And so I want to make sure whatever we do and how we do it the best. And so is there anything I'm missing, Kathy? Okay.
No, I want the group, the steering committee, to understand that Dr. Thomas was the one that originally initiated putting this into a 5-year plan. Okay. And that surprised me when I found that information out. So he had the foresight to understand that no matter how it was carved out, that we needed to pay attention to it. And yes, we're running more 16-week classes. And yes, we have a lot of students that have come back ground, but we also have a lot of students that have discovered that online fits their life better. So I want them to have the best experience. When somebody mentions doing online courses in the state of Oklahoma or outside of Oklahoma, I want Oklahoma City Community College to have that reputation that we care, because we sincerely do, and that we support them in whatever they need. And that's not quite transparent on our website. People that work here, we know it. People that are on campus, they know it. How do we get that word out to our online faculty and students? So,
well, and if roughly 30%, 27.5% of our students pre-pandemic were online, it doesn't take a genius to figure out post-pandemic, it's going to be higher than that.
yeah, we're
And
late
so
we're at what, 67% right now?
67%. I'm going to guess probably between 40 and 50 when all you finish shaking the trees and everything else. I'm going to say that's a pretty solid number. 40 is only a 10% increase over where we were. So I think that's a very reasonable. You have more students who are exposed to it at a younger age, and they're going to continue that way. It's just going to be. So what's going to make us different? Because now they can go anywhere in the world and take classes. What makes it different from anybody else? It's going to be how we deliver it. We just have to do it better than everybody else. No pressure. We have to do it better than everybody else. So are there any questions for me before I turn it back over to Kathy? All right, they're all yours.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate you popping in. Okay, so as you can hear, listening to Dr. Thomas, in that he shares this vision, but we've slowed the train down in some areas. We've stopped it in other areas. And I'm going to explain to you how we're going to pursue this so that we're kind of killing two birds with one stone, in that we're pursuing quality matters while we start to build out our online culture or online presence. Okay, so we wanted to work on the gateway courses first, and I visited with Dr. Largent, and I can introduce Candy McKee on the call. She is the chair for English Comp 1, amongst other things. She wears several hats, but there's our beginning. We want to work on these sections, the course that touches the most students, and most students take Comp 1. So we're not going to go in there and take their purses and shake them out and dump everything in the floor and make a mess. We're not doing that. The way Dr. Thomas had explained it to me, and if you guys can keep this focus in mind, is that the division owns the content. The division owns the content. So I've explained to you before that I am not going to go in and mess with your content. There's only psychology that I would have the qualifications to do that, but I'm not doing it there either, because that's why they have a dean and a chair. Okay. What I am going to poke my head in using Quality Matters as the roadmap is the navigation of the course. What's the first impression when a student opens your course? Is it cluttered? Is it organized? Are you trying to give the student everything at one time? Want to be able to see your syllabus, want to be able to see the engagement factors, all of that built into the course. So working with Dr. Largent and Candy, she is going to issue an invitation out to her Comp 1 faculty next week, asking for volunteers. Hopefully we're aiming for 15 to 25 sections of Comp 1 to start exploring. That's the best word. Let's look and see what's happening first. Not with a critical eye, but with a coaching eye. What do we need to work on? Now, I have great confidence with Candy and her knowledge. She used to be a master Quality Matters reviewer. So I have great confidence in her that she's already worked this into her master course already. Okay. But, we need to see about the accessibility. We need to identify some areas that we need to work on. Okay. So we're going to start with that. And then moving into the spring semester, we're going to add more sections onto that. I've already visited with Lindsay Baker and Lauren in the CLT, and they are prepared for a possible influx of faculty that need to complete the online certification course. I know that the chairs have already been through that. I don't know about the adjuncts. So we're going to be reasonable about it. We're not going to expect them to sign up for it or us sign them up for it before Christmas break. We are going to ask them to have that completed before the fall term. Okay. So the ideal thing would be that for them to work on it during spring semester when they're already on, quote, on contract and working. But we need to be sure that everybody is starting from a level playing field. If they've already gone through that course, all they need to do is send me their certificate and these are the courses that the sections that Candy will identify that we're going to look at. We want to make sure those faculty have all been through our training. And then we're going to look at the courses to see, are they where they need to be? And if they're not, what do we need to do? All right. So you say, well, what does that have to do with the online division? Like I explained before, what we're gearing for is whether a student is taking a fine arts class or whether they're taking a math course or whether they're taking English or psychology, that when they go into the course, they know how to navigate it. All right. Where to find things easily. Have you got everything at the front door? Do you not? Is the syllabus explanatory? The engagement factor, is that explained to the student that it may not be mandatory for you to participate in that engagement, but the benefits to you doing so will reap, it's all of those things. And the faculty member being engaged with their students, that it's not one of those things that you're given an online class and all you do is grade and regurgitate. That's what we want to make sure is not happening. All right. So I'm going to pause at this point and ask, do we have any questions about us starting into this pilot? Yes, sir.
Are
Steve.
there monies going to be available for the going through the certification for adjuncts?
No.
Okay.
It'll be part of their teaching load. I did approach that topic with Dr. Thomas. You know, we discussed it. If faculty, once we get into official Quality Matters reviews, if they are a part of that, which that will be chairs and leads, or in HP's area, it would be program directors. Something outside of the scope of their job, we will consider stipends. But this training is something that should have taken place before, you know, during their first online course. And if first, I had one faculty member approach me by phone in that they were told that their training that they went through at another school met our requirements. Well, that school doesn't use Moodle. Okay, so they may have online teaching experience, but were they held to meeting expectations, such as, is the faculty member responding within 48 hours of a student sending a message? Are grades being returned within a week? You know, those kind of expectations. You don't know what that other school conditions may have had, and it may have been fine for those professors to only turn in grades every 4 weeks. Well, that's not what we want with our online, because this, as I'm reading through hundreds of student comments from the last online survey that was put out to our online students, the two biggest categories, 32% and 36%, are faculty. All right, meaning 32% of faculty are doing what the students like, 36% of them are not. And their number one area is communication. They can't get the faculty member to respond, or the response is read my syllabus. Okay, so we want to set expectations as we're working through these evaluations, and know that training is professional development, and I hope they don't give pushback. It's to help them.
Hey, Kathy.
Yes.
From what I understand, they actually get 1 hour, 1 office hour release to do the training. Yes. In the past, years ago, they were paid a stipend for the training separately. They quit doing that a couple of years ago, and now my understanding is they get an hour of office hour
Of release.
time.
Thank you, Lindsay. I did not know that. Okay, so any questions about what I've discussed so far? Are you guys open to those, setting those expectations? Okay, so I've kind of explained how Quality Matters is going to work in there, and we're going to slowly move. We're going to use the rubric that the CLT and Glenn already had for online, so I'm not changing that up at this point. Bruce Cook came and met with me and gave me a different kind of way, questions to look at. I need to present that in to Dr. Thomas and Dr. Wisenhunt before I put that out there, but it is a more user-friendly self-evaluation way of doing it using that same information. So we're not going to, as we're doing this initial investigation, we are not going to pull out the Quality Matters rubric at this point and expect faculty to meet that. They'd run to the hills. It would be reminiscent of your Title III process, and we're not going there. All right. And we have to start somewhere. You can't move an F student to an A overnight. So biting off this in bits and pieces is the best way to do it. And that's how we're starting. In the interim, I'm going to go through another QM training that will allow me to be certified to train here on the campus. All right, QM is very proprietary. about their information, and you have to go through a certification course to be able to teach it on your campus. So looking at next fall, that will allow me to train faculty on what we're looking for, to expose them to it without them having to go through the 2-week intensive training that the chairs have to go through. Okay, so to get the information out so they understand that it's a continuous improvement process. You don't get 100%. It isn't a pass or fail. We shoot for 85%. That's what we do. So everything will not be perfect. Candy or Jennifer, is there anything you want to add to that as my QM experts at this point?
I don't think so. I think it's not as scary as everybody might fear it to be. It's going to be fine.
Most of you are already, your faculty or yourself are already doing these things. Okay, we just have to see it, measure it, track it. That's it. So the work, for the most part, is going to come from our end. So as the steering committee, I want to be able to bring you concerns and help brainstorm how to overcome that problem. Maybe we have faculty that don't believe they need to engage. So I'm just hypothetically speaking. How do we help them with this transition without making it punitive or creating a hostile type situation? So we don't know what we're going to run into until we start. And those problems will be brought to this committee for how would you handle it? Sort of like when we role play or try to figure out how to deal with a disgruntled student, and maybe another set of eyes or ears can look on it and say, well, why don't you try to approach it like this? And that's what Candy and I will be bringing you, is that this is what we found in the courses. Let's say, Candy, we find 5 things and we prioritize that. This committee may say, you're focusing on the wrong thing there. Okay. So I've explained the training. I explained the goal. One of the other things, we have a brand new vice president of student affairs. And so far, I really like his sense of humor and his approach and student-centric approach and involving different entities to contribute to how we approach things. Dr. Thomas has challenged me to work with Dr. Johnson with no problems at all, to try to get feedback on what sort of services the students want. So we discussed today about doing some focus groups as far as what do they like about what we're doing? What do they don't like about what we're doing? I love what the CLT has done with their landing page, and I'm envious, and I'm going to plagiarize, and I want our online landing page to look similar to that, along with links back to their landing page that offers so many tools for faculty and students. So it's how to bring that in-person experience to our online faculty and students. That's a big goal for me, is that it shouldn't take 20 clicks to figure out how to get information. Should be easier than that. And if our faculty are responding to these small videos like on Flipgrid, or Flip as it's called now, can you imagine what our students would do with some brief videos on how to harness Zoom better, how to navigate the schedule of an 8-week online high-paced course, things like that. So at this point, Mickey should be hitting his watch, telling me to watch my time and shut up. You guys have been really good about, some of you, about sharing, and others, you just get the updates and go on, which is fine. Anything that was shared in today's meeting can be shared with your faculty, okay? I think that it would be helpful if they kind of knew that there's not a super secret society going on behind the walls, and that we do have goals and aspirations for the betterment of faculty and students, not just the students. Okay, what kind of questions can we help with?
I don't have a question, but I would offer a comment just from experience. I prefer to call it being seasoned. Thinking about when I originally went through Quality Matters with UCO, they did a really good job with it, and you went through the and they gave the idea and the understanding that this is going to be time consuming and that there is an investment here. I remember them calling it an investment, which I thought was a great way to market that. What I wished I had at that early point was the ability to see a model class that was in the learning management system. It was D2L at that time, so that I could work backwards from seeing a model example, and then go in and build and design my own course based on going through those activities and sections, whether it was the introduction or the grading or the how to put a forum in or whatever those were. But if I had been able to have a conversation with a mentor who had already gone through, and I could see a model course, I think that would have taken the edge off early on because of the expectation, because it does seem very big all at once. So just offering that as an idea for those that come early on that are a little tenuous about it.
Well, you will be happy to know, Kathy, that Glenee came to me, gosh, I've slept a lot since then, Tuesday morning, with a class she was working on, trying to bring it more conform to what we're aiming for. And she's going to allow me to share that as an example. And it wasn't major things that she needed to change. And she kind of had stepped back from it and looked at it and kind of knew what I was going to say before I even said it. But she was very open to the suggestions, that it made sense. She said to give her a couple of days to get it fixed. She told me she was going to put it out to her students that it was under construction. Okay. And I'm going to take screenshots of that so that you guys can get an idea. And Candy and Jennifer, Jennifer, my hesitation with you at this point is because you're integrated with your stuff with Canvas. That your Moodle landing page, I probably could use. And Candy, as we work on this Comp 1 thing, I've not poked my head in there yet. We probably can use screenshots of that to show this committee also. And when you become comfortable with it, you'll be able to convey it better to who you're working with. But Kathy, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Okay, Mike, you always are a thinker. I can see the wheels turning in your brain. Okay. Do you have a concern that maybe some of the adjunct faculty may have some trepidation about this?
No, I have concern that I will lose adjunct faculty to your division. That's what I have concern about.
Well, guess what? We're not going there. Okay. I am okay being a co-manager with whoever is managing this online faculty. All right. If I go into a class and I have a concern, I'm going to go to the chair. Okay. They don't know me. And the chair and I, like Candy and I, when we're going in and looking at these courses, I'm going to take my lead from her. Yes, I've got 20 years in higher education that we can brainstorm it, but these people need to understand that I'm not in there to attack them or weed them out. I coach them up, okay, or use them as an example. Like Mr. Reimer has come to me. I want to use him as an example, as a best practice, because the examples, when we go into doing welcome week, these faculty, the information coming from them is going to sound better than coming from me, because you're in the trenches doing it. But no, I have no, we are going to share faculty. I'm not poaching. Eventually, you know, last call, we talked about hiring a coordinator type person. I talked with Dr. Thomas about that, and he was not opposed, but I don't think we're ready for that. Personally speaking, I think that we need to get in and figure some things out before we hire somebody to come in. I think that the people that we have in place right now are very qualified and knowledgeable, and that let's get a start here, and then we might start hiring some full-time online faculty, okay, to help manage this growth. But I don't think we're to that point yet. And I hope that makes you feel better about the situation, not worse.
Well, as someone who's been through the Quality Matters training myself, I could see a scenario in which some faculty members, adjunct faculty members, who are very busy teaching between 2 or 3 schools, and they're not aware of how time consuming that training is, how much it demands. I could see some of them perhaps, you know, getting a little bit upset. And I have had, you know, I had an instructor quit this semester because he didn't want to go through the training, the online training, because he didn't get any kind of credential or something. So at least they're getting a certification here.
Yeah, they'll get a certificate. The Quality Matters training is going to be isolated to the chairs first, and then full-time faculty being taught internal, okay? The adjuncts are not going to have to go through that intensive Quality Matters training. It may be that when they're onboarded, that we need to do a little session on it so they have an idea what we're talking about. But no, the adjuncts are not going to have to go through that QM training, okay? But
that makes me feel better.
okay, the online certification, though, unrelated to Quality Matters, they do need to be sure that they've done that. Okay, I'm not going to make them redo it. They're going to need to cough up a certificate, or have, I'll have Lauren see if he can locate it on our server. But I want the documentation that anybody that is teaching in the online modality, that they've gone through our training. And I have done it, and even I learned things, okay? So it's good. Thanks for saying something, Michael. Appreciate that. Any other questions? Okay, so November is a hot mess. All right, I look at the calendar and I cringe, I shut it and go back to October. No, we are not going to have a steering committee meeting in November. We might throw in a small one first or second week of December, just as a catch up, so that you guys kind of know how our exploration in Comp 1 is going. Please, in the interim, feel free to reach out. All right, this committee, we are a team, and I need your brains. I need your brains. Don't be afraid to be critical. Just don't call me mean names. Don't be afraid to be the one. What in our enrollment management meeting earlier, Stephanie is so good about laying out places for us to step our feet in dog poop. Okay, don't be afraid to do that. This is the forum to do it. especially if you are more seasoned and you do have experience in this. I have experience, but I may not have the same experience that you have. So, you know, don't be afraid to shoot an informal email and say, have you thought about this? Can we talk about this in our next meeting? Okay. So we've gone to where this is more, and I love it, more a steering committee, not just a name. Okay. Are you guys good with things? Okay. Well, I guess you really, really want to start packing up your dolls and dishes to go home, huh? Nikki, he got it up there really quick. So let me shut off the recording.